Okay. All right, well, it is 7:33. We've got 11 people signed in, only 4 faces showing up with video. Oh, there's somebody else, Mike Lotka from Pack 3 in Somerville. Okay, give him a chance to get his video going. Well, to break the silence, well, thank you all for checking in, hopefully participating in the rest of the evening till 9 o'clock. We try to start on time and end on time. And we usually start with, as we do for our unit meetings, I trust, whether they're dens or troops or patrols or whatever. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if I can figure out where my camera is, there we go. Okay, please join me in the pledge. Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. And to remind ourselves of the goals and intentions of the Scout program, the values that we're trying to instill in the youth. Please join me in the Scout oath, followed by the Scout law. Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And the Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, and reverent. 2.
Forget one, John?
Yeah, what happened to clean?
Did I forget one? No.
It's in the laundry.
Okay. That question often gets asked in the Eagle Board's review, just to throw the poor kid off. It's like, oh, I must have gotten them all. So again, welcome all. And we do have a full agenda for tonight. So we have a special guest or speaker, I should say, Marianne Baker, a face the rest of us may not recognize. And Elizabeth Boyle, which unit are you from?
56.
56. Oh, Cambridge is represented. Okay.
Yeah,
Welcome.
I'm the new registrar. I was told to come and get information.
Okay. You've been saddled with the responsibility to get the unit rechartered and re-registered. Huh?
Yes.
Okay, we will be talking about that later. That's my topic. Okay, so let's see. Does anybody know, is John Pleva expecting to join us? Or are we going to rely on John Andrus for anything from council?
He did text me that he was in a troop committee meeting.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to join us.
Yeah, I know he has a conflict on Thursday nights, almost every Thursday night. So even though our roundtable, well, we've got more districts now than we used to have. So John, is there anything in particular you want to pass on, anything new that the rest of us may not know?
Very little. Just bankruptcy, since we always haven't put it to bed completely. I think virtually 100% of the trust has been funded. So we're just waiting on the district court now, which hopefully will rule and confirm everything in January. So bottom line is it's moving along according to plan. Hopefully it is going to be done in coming months and we won't have to ever mention it again. That's the good news. I guess the council camper is kind of old news at this point, but it was a great success. I'll leave rechartering because I think you're going to bring that up later. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit, join you then. And the only other thing would be the Commissioner College. Yes, we've finally nailed down. It looks like we're going to hold it at St. Veronica's Parish, St. Margaret's Church in Burlington. I think John has finally nailed down that would be April 1st at that location. So we'll be working on and getting that set up. I think that's all we had right now, other than rechartering.
Okay, that's Burlington, St. Veronica's.
Yeah.
Slash, is it combined parish now?
Yeah, well, it's St. Veronica's Parish / St. Margaret's Church. So I'm not quite sure how that works out, but they use both. But the sign is St. Veronica's, so I'm going to probably suggest we, post that in there because it's easier to recognize from the road.
You're not allowed to change the name of a church, I guess. I
Yeah.
found out.
Yeah, it's kind of like a boat, huh? Yeah, don't change. Bad luck to change name of boat, right?
Sounds like a good thing. Okay. Well, thank you, John. Let's see. I don't have a copy of the outline.
How about, John, how about if we have a couple minutes for Steve to do the district announcements?
Oh, the first part. Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
first part of the outline, right?
Yep.
Hey, Steve, you want to turn on your mic and fill us in?
Oh, well, I think that there's a couple of things that are a little undefined at the moment. We're working on a Trail to Eagle seminar for both youth and adults that would be presented more than once. It will be presented virtually, via Zoom, but we'll also have an in-person one at some point. We don't have dates for that yet, but it's coming. We're also working on a camporee for May in Waltham here at the Prospect Hill Park. And it will be in May. It will be either May 5, 6, and 7 or 19, 20, 21. We're on the Recreation Board docket for December 7, and we'll know that night which weekend it will be. So stand by for announcements for that. Should be a fun thing. There was a camporee here at Prospect Hill back in 2004 that I think went pretty well. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add except
Klondike Derby coming up in February 2023.
Yep, thank you. I knew I was forgetting something. Our activities chairman isn't with us tonight. The date is, do you have the date in front of you, Ron?
Hang on, I'm going to share his content.
I
think
got it. It's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of February. It'll be at TL Stora, and I believe there's a registration link available already.
Yep, February 3, 4, and 5.
Oh, and right, that's what I wanted to talk about. So we have ordered patches at the urging of Cat Powers from Troop 30 in Watertown. We've instituted the Frost Points Award, which is actually available for tracking in internet advancement. There's a way to record, is what Kat told me, there's a way to record the degrees below freezing that a scout camps per year. And so we created patches to recognize them for that accomplishment. And it doesn't matter if you don't track those degrees below freezing in internet advancement or not. A Scoutmaster can just communicate with me directly and tell me, a scout is trustworthy. If you tell me that a scout camped a cumulative 60 degrees below freezing over the course of the winter, I'll believe you. And what we'll do is to aggregate the numbers that we get, and we've created 3 levels of recognition. The patches are the same, but they have a white, a blue, and a purple border to distinguish. And so purple is the highest level of degrees below freezing, because that's the color your lips turn after you've been camping that many nights below freezing. In addition to that, we've created, it's kind of a throwback to the 70s when the districts would present 2 winter camping patches. The Snowy Owl is for camping in a tent one night below freezing. Doesn't matter how many degrees below freezing, it's just you were in a tent, it was below freezing, you get the patch, the snowy owl patch. And then deep freezes for 2 nights below freezing in a tent. And again, it's Scoutmaster's discretion. They just report to us, and we will provide the patches will be available for purchase probably through the Scout Shop. So I just wanted to put that on the radar, and we'll get, when we get the patches in hand, we'll start sending out communiques about that with the description and the pictures of the patches. So that's
Steve,
it for me.
Steve, I have a question for you. I camped this last weekend and it was 70 degrees. Does that mean I have minus 38 frost points?
Yes. You gotta work back.
Below freezing, Ron.
No, but I mean, can I lose points by camping above freezing?
No, you don't lose points for camping in warm weather. You can only earn points.
No, only Ron will have that. Everyone else doesn't.
What's that? What'd you say, Ken?
Only Ron will lose the points.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Only Ron.
Well, these are youth
Yep.
camping awards anyway. But, depending on, how much participation we get, we'd like to invite the coldest scouts to the district dinner in April and recognize them. Hopefully they'll be thawed out by that time.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Mary Ann, are you ready?
Oh, sure.
What I broke your material into actually 3 slides. I'm not sure which order you want to show them in.
The
The one-
incident, which that's fine. I can
Okay.
go either way, it's fine. So just in case people don't know, I'm the Vice President of Health and Safety for the Spirit of Adventure Council. We have formed a health and safety committee that is overseeing incidents that happen. And I am also in contact with the National Health and Safety Board, and they send me newsletters of updates and new regulations that might be put in place. So there's a big push right now about incident reporting. There seems to be some people are good about it, some people don't do it regularly. So we went to all the roundtables this month to talk about when you should use an incident report and how you should do it. So we really are hoping that most people will do it in a timely manner. We would like to see the incidents that happen be reported to the council, and then we can decide whether it's something that needs to have further information, further looking into. But the real reason we're looking at incident reports is there an area, say at one of the camps that the council owns, where kids are like tripping over stairs, or like we've had multiple accidents there, so we want to correct it. Actually, the newsletter I got for November, I guess they've been having a lot of injuries in Gaga. I don't know if any of you play the game Gaga with your troops, so there's some concern about the game Gaga. But so it's just sort of to get an idea of, is there a lot of injuries at this type of activity, and what can we do to make it better so that we don't see the injuries. We also are involved in incidents that happen like bullying or anything like that. We would intervene and meet with the troop leadership and figure out what we want to do in those circumstances. So we have, if you can see, there's a link to the safety incident report. You can just keep going. Can you raise it up a little?
You want the second page?
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, so this just talks about when you should file. On the next page, there's a flow sheet that you would answer the questions and decide if you needed to do an incident report. Yeah, that's the flow sheet. So it's like, is somebody hurt? And so you just go down yes or no, and then it will tell you whether you need to do a report or not. So that's the flow sheet that we're letting everyone have, just so you can make a decision whether you need to fill out a report or not. You can also, if you're not sure, you can email me, email John Pleva, and we would be happy to tell you whether you should do a report or not. If we can go back to the other page.
Yep.
So there is a place called if you go that link, it will bring you to a page that tells you all about incident reporting and the tool that we have. And you can do an online report if you use the Risk Connect, and it will do an electronic incident report. Now, the 3 different ways they want to categorize incidents: a near miss, and this is if there was an incident that was an unplanned event, but it didn't result in any injury, illness, or damage, but it had the potential to do so. So if you saw like a child almost tripped over the steps, or the steps gave way and somebody could have got hurt, something like that, that you want us to know about. The second one would be a membership infraction. So these are YPT, youth protection, they're not following the youth protection guidelines, or behavioral issues. And this would be, we would be deciding whether their membership would be revoked, or what kind of plan we would put in place. So this would be anything that's physical violence, or if a verbal altercation gets to the point where they're like saying they want to kill the other person, or, if it's a serious verbal threat. So we, anything that would put a scout at risk, we would like to be informed about. If you send a child home from summer camp or from a weekend outing because they're bullying other kids, or there's been some verbal or physical altercations, we would like to be informed of that. It's better that you let us know before we get a call from a parent. Like, parents will call and say this happened on the weekend, and it's nice if we know about it before they call us. And worst case, if it got into the media, we would like to know about it so that before it's on TV. So that's the membership infractions. And the last one is general liability. If you have a COVID outbreak after an outing, hopefully this is going to go away soon. Keep my fingers crossed. Or if there was bodily injury or illness or property damage. So so we would like you to just let us know about anything that's going on. We're not talking about minor things that you can, you get 2 boys calling each other names at a troop meeting, and the leadership sits them down and talks to them. That's, we don't need to know about that. But if it escalates and it keeps happening, meeting after meeting after meeting, and it gets to the point where it could be considered bullying, or if there's some physical altercation, then we would like to be informed. So that's pretty much what we just wanted to let everybody know, and just make sure that all the units know that they should be reporting on incidents that are happening. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, first quick question I have, I think I read in your, in the document that an injury that requires only scout first aid is not something that we would report. Right.
Yeah, if you just put on a Band-Aid, or, so it's more like if you had to take a child to the hospital, or if they had to go to the doctors, say they got home from the trip and their parents took them to a doctor's. So it's a more serious injury.
Okay. And the other question is, if you mentioned the specific case of, say, a set of stairs that are rotten, shouldn't we also make a first report to, like, the camp ranger?
Yes, that would be nice to let them know. Yes, but it's also good just to let us know, because then we can follow up to make sure the ranger does actually fix it. So.
Okay. What we're going to do, Marianne, is we'll send out a follow-up to all our registered leaders, and we'll include your 2 PDFs. And if it's okay with you, can we include your email address that
Yes.
you communicate? That
That's
will
fine.
be a
Yep.
chat.
Yep, you can include mine or you can, and John Pleba's, just so, that would be fine.
Okay. So that's great. I mean, it's a very clear, I love that flow chart. I mean, that we should have with us these situations.
Yeah, it's nice to have a flow chart for when you're trying to decide. And, really feel free to email me if you're not sure. I'm fine with answering any questions. I've worked as an in-home therapist for children that had behavior issues.
Mhm.
So I've done a lot of work with kids that had behavior issues and with DCF. So, I'm sort of the behavior person on the committee, and then Dan is he was a resource officer and a retired police officer, so he kind of looks at the legal aspects, and then we have 2 people that are on boards of health, so that we have sort of a combination of people on the committee.
One thing that has always been a concern to me in the youth protection arena is the advice we always got in youth protection training about contacting the Scout executive. Before I retired, I was on the faculty of Children's Hospital. So I was required, for me in a situation like that, I was required by law to report it to the authorities, Scout executive or not. Do you have any kind of clarification for people in that situation?
We would, if in the youth protection training, it does say to notify DCF, and it, I've been teaching the.
Yeah, it's like an addendum for Massachusetts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Specific.
Yeah, so it does say, I think a lot of people aren't comfortable calling DCF and filing a 51A. So that's why we say notify John, and then John would notify the DCF. So John has contacts at DCF that he would notify. So we have, incidents that happened over the summer, we've had to get DCF involvement. So.
Yeah.
And Ron, I think the main reason that the youth protection training says, look, just report it, is we don't want scoutmasters and assistant scoutmasters to think they need to investigate a claim before reporting, right? We want it just reported and have someone whose job it is, as opposed to, me figuring out whether or not a kid is at risk.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's better to have people that have experience dealing with DCF and dealing with, at-risk issues. So, and it does pretty clearly state in the youth protection training not to investigate,
Right.
because you don't want to taint the investigation either. You want it to be not, because sometimes the questions can be leading, because if you're not experienced at what you're asking, and then it could end up making things different than they need to be. So,
Right.
but and I would, if you call John and you report an incident, I would follow up too with him and say, did you call DCF? I used to run, I was a camp director at summer camp. And when my staff would report an issue to me, and if I filed with DCF, once I got an answer from DCF, I would go back to the staff person and let them know what happened, so that they know I did follow up. So I think it's good for you to know that somebody actually did follow up and did, what they needed to do.
Yes, that is important, because the one incident I remember, which was more than a decade ago, yes, we reported to the then Scout executive, and it was kind of, the guy disappeared, but nobody ever heard anything else. So I don't know if there's any follow-up, or it was just, just go away.
Yeah, it's good to have follow-up, and we have been, in the incidences that we've had, since we've had this health and safety committee, we do send a letter to the key 3 saying, this is what was decided, this is what the resolution is, so that they know what happened.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be more transparent about that, so.
Well, that is super. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and quite honestly, hope that we don't have to interact on a professional.
I know, I know, I'm sure everyone's like, well, it's nice meeting you, but I hope I never talk to you again. You know? But, you know, like, I take it, I'm very serious about, you know, especially things like bullying, because I've seen the results of what's happened to kids that have been bullied. So I, you know, take these things pretty serious. So, you know, whatever we can do to make scouting safer and have everybody have a good and fun and experience is what we need to do.
Right. I mean, for Scoutmaster, the first obligation is the protection of the youth who are in your charge. Right.
So, all right. Well, it's nice to meet you all and having a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you very much, Marianne.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
All right. Bye.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess now we get into the nuts and bolts part of life, renewing a charter. John Bold, you are the pro. You know actually how to help people through this. Can you give us some pointers?
Sure. First thing is start early, so you don't run up against the deadline or run past December 31st. I noticed the printout here says the deadline is November 30th. I don't plan on doing any of that stuff on my birthday, which is that day. So I'm encouraging people to do it before Thanksgiving, which is only 2 weeks away now. So and you don't have to submit it that early. You can submit it in December, but you don't want to miss the December 31st deadline, because then all hell breaks loose, and everybody gets agitated after that, and more so the longer it goes after that. So we'd love this year to get everybody in, all the units rechartered, all the scouts and adult leaders re-registered before we get anywhere near the end of the calendar year. So I know that's, I run across some Cub Scout packs, especially the one that I do this process for. They don't want to spend all that money to recharter kids from September through December of the current year if they're brand new. My argument back to them is that, well, you are indicating that they are scouts by working with them, by you working with them and them participating. And if they're not registered, certainly, first of all, the insurance doesn't cover, but even more important is they're not actually scouts. And you're kind of lying to them. So work it in. I encourage them to work their budget. If it means asking the parents for another 4 months worth of money to pay for the current year, then tell them that. And if they don't want to pay, then maybe you can hold off. But it gets crazy if in December you're trying to get all these applications submitted. It's crazy for the person doing it. It's crazy for the people at the council that have to fill in the gaps or check and make sure everything is done. Scout Book is a wonderful tool. It's nice to use it because it helps everybody else along the chain, up and down the ladder. So working early, getting it out of the way, getting everything ready to submit is important to get done now while we're still in November. Then if anything doesn't come forward, you got another month to work on it. But if you wait until the last month, it's bad. So that's the first thing. You need to get there, make sure everybody has an application. If you got new kids and no application, it's hard for anybody else like me or people in the office to do anything for them. So it's made easier by going online. The parents can go online and register their kid, fill in the application. They know their email address. They can come up with a password and an ID for Scout Book of their own, so they can follow through during the year, well, the years in front of them. But they got to start, they should start somewhere, and it should be as close as possible to joining a unit. You're not really joining if you don't get some paperwork done, and just handing in money is not a good deal if you don't have the paperwork to go with it. So the other thing is youth protection. Right about now, I think a lot of leaders are running up against the expiration of their youth protection training, because it's every 2 years, not 1 year. And a whole lot of us did it 2 years ago, so it's time to do it again. And of course, there's some teeth behind that. If an adult has not completed and submitted their certification of having completed the youth protection training, they will not be re-registered if they're an existing leader. And if you're brand new, you're not even going to get listed as a new leader if that youth protection training isn't documented. Plus, the new ones have to have their OID, Corey forms, all the good stuff, copy of their driver's license. So all those fit together, but it's the beginning to get all that done for somebody who's brand new. Logging, okay, yeah, there's interesting. I didn't know we had a recharger system. I think it's a recharger system. I had to read that 3 times before I realized
John,
it had been a typo.
This computer is smarter than me. It makes up words, really.
I have that happening with my text messages, so
It's extremely
squeezes the word in there.
proper name, and it changes it to something completely irrelevant. Yeah.
So, okay, so it's easy enough to log in, but anybody logging in has to have a ID and a password. So, and I don't want to know anybody else's passwords. IDs are bad enough, but I have had to do that in the past to get things rolling. Create a password for them and pass it on to the parents so they can follow through. Upload all the required documents. Yep. And definitely don't pay national. If you're the person doing the rechartering process, if you're not one of the key 3s, you have to be approved. Actually, one of the key 3s has to declare you to be their substitute. I know they use a different term for it, but delegate or stand in. But don't hit that key and submit it with the money going out of some checking account or credit card, and it goes all the way to national. Council probably is never going to get that money out of council. It's like an insurance company. They don't want to pay out. They rather collect the money. So save that part of it for dealing with the local council. And of course, key 3 signatures, got to get those things signed by someone other than the parents signing for their kids, or even the head of the institution or committee chair signing for new adults. So, but for the rechartering, you got to get in there somehow. And it's got to be done before the end of this calendar year. Earlier is better. Any questions? Someone else referred, John, I guess you were going to.
Yeah.
John Andrus.
A couple things.
John Bo, one question for you. I think it's the youth protection, the leader certificate has to be good through March of 2023. Isn't that correct?
The youth protection?
Yes, it may be current as of December 31st, but it actually has to be valid through March of next year.
Yeah.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, that's an important key.
So, that's always the hardest problem for people. You give people do this, you get them to do it, and then they say, well, it's good until December 31st. It's like, well, it's not good enough. Okay, John, here, I think this is some of the issues that you more appropriate talking about the different charter organizations.
Before we go to that, that last point that John made about pay council, not national, it's not the council, is doing a money grab or anything. The real point is that if there's a mistake on the roster or something, if the money goes to national, council is not in a position to make changes and pull money back. So if it goes through the council, they can make corrections before the money goes upstream and hopefully save money that otherwise might not be able to get back is the real issue, as I understand it.
As I recall, John Pleva explaining the process this year, there's an interim step before you pay, where you submit your roster, your charter, there's a review, and then they tell you how much you owe, and then
Yes.
you pay. So
You're right.
So you should be submitting the roster without payment for review. Then they will review it, and you can discuss, oh, that guy shouldn't be there, this person should be added, we can figure that stuff out, or that's a multiple, whatever, and then you determine the actual payment and you pay so that they can sort, so that I don't know what it looks like online, but there should be a step where you submit, they review, and then you pay.
Yes, thanks for the reminder. You're exactly right. And they've taken it to a step of the council will issue an invoice. The idea being to save people the difficulty of calculating it correctly. The units don't have to do that. The council will do it, issue an invoice, and that way the unit knows they're paying the right amount of money when they pay.
Yeah, the old way was kind of sneaky. The screen just showed up with the amount, and you're looking like when you want to finish the process, you want to hit that submit button, but that's not the way to go. And that is much clearer this year. So thank goodness somebody got through to it. But John, I'll be happy to defer to you to talk about the Methodist churches and the Catholic Church and all the rest of the process.
Gee, thanks.
I can take it if you want.
No, this stuff is important, and I'll throw the question back at the end of his seeing what you're seeing, if anything. And just before we do that, I just jumped on Commissioner Tools. It looks like 10 units in the district have already signed on and are doing something online. So you got about 25 more to get started. So they're off to a good start. I think we've talked about the Methodist Church before. And it does not look like they're going to be, chartering units, and we have the agreements in place for them. The Roman Catholic Church is kind of a mixed bag. It seems like different dioceses are approaching it differently. I've heard down in Rhode Island, at least I think it might be Fall River, has said, no, they don't want their churches, the parishes, to charter units. So they're looking at, okay, can they do something similar to the Methodist with affiliation agreements or, facility use agreements? And we'll probably be headed in that direction in some. My understanding, though, in Boston, I think we're still okay with the Roman Catholic Church, and that it's, I think, left to the discretion of the pastor, is my understanding of where we are right now. And
yeah, I can confirm that. We've had exchanges with Jim Mazzola, who's I think he's on the committee for scouting with, the diocese, and he had an email exchange with Father O'Connor, who's the counsel for the diocese. And the first email said, we're encouraging parishes not to sign it, blah, blah, blah. And James, got back to him and said, okay, you used the word encouraging, but could you clarify, are you telling them not to? And he clarified, and he said, no, we are encouraging them not to sign it. But they may, words to that effect. So each individual parish within the Boston diocese is allowed to make their own decision.
Right, that's my understanding as well. And for those units that, if for some reason they run into this problem and they don't have a chartered organization, the council is really the fallback, I think, as it is intended to be temporary. It is hopefully intended that they will find a new chartering organization in the future. But as we've done in the past, we will end up with units probably, chartered by the council. Which raises the other issue there's been a lot of discussion about is tax identification number, the EIN. And last year, I think National was kind of discouraging using the council EIN. Because if you don't, usually a unit would use the EIN for their chartered organization. But if they don't have a chartered organization or they don't get renewed, National has said the way to proceed is to use the council EIN. And John wanted me to pass on that if we find ourselves in that predicament with any units, reach out to the council and talk to them. Because I think they do have some paperwork that they fill out to make sure that, you know, it is done properly and that the council knows who is using the EIN. So that's a different issue, and that way they will preserve their tax exempt status as well. And yeah, the facility use agreements, I'm still at a loss. So maybe you guys know better than me. So you've got affiliate agreements and you got facility use agreements. I'm at a little bit of a loss of when to use which one. I haven't gotten that clarified in my own mind. And have you guys run into this yet with any particularly Methodist units? Or are you seeing any of this coming to a head yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, well, we're a United Methodist unit, and I know that we're looking to go to the council for a charter organization. We do not have a backup right now.
Okay.
There was a troop committee meeting on Tuesday night, and they're looking at options, but it'd be surprising if something happened before John's birthday.
Art, is the is the church presenting you with the facilities and use agreement to sign to allow you to meet there?
We will be able to continue to meet there for 2023. I don't know about the paperwork behind it, but that's the other unfortunate part is our building is actually being sold. So even if there wasn't for this national thing going on, we would still be looking for both a place and a charter organization come 2024.
Act 3 and Troop 3 are both chartered out of United Methodist as well. We have a very friendly pastor who's eager to conduct a facilities use agreement with us. We don't have that drafted yet. We're looking to consort some legal counsel for the process of getting that drafted. We are going to charter through the council for 2023, and we are forming an exploratory committee to determine who we want to be our charter organization for 2024, which is going to start meeting in Q1.
Okay. By the way, the facility use agreement, the United Methodist Church actually has one up on their website that they're encouraging encouraging or telling or whatever their churches to use. So you shouldn't have to go through and draft anything. You may want to have a lawyer look at it, but of course, it's already in place.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a form agreement. So, and council would have it if not the church. So yeah, don't go reinventing the wheel.
I would assume that the
Okay.
institution would want you to use theirs, right, rather than some generic thing.
Yeah, they came out from the Boy Scouts and the United Methodist Church, I think, put them both out together. So
Oh, good.
I think they've agreed on the form of it. If I can find it, I will put it in the chat.
All right, that's good to know. Thanks.
I think that was all I had on those points, unless there was some other question. And I'll reiterate, John, earlier is better. I know not always, and everyone doesn't always subscribe to that theory, but.
Did I hear you say something about the Methodists and the Catholics agreed on something?
No, I wasn't referring, I said the Methodists and the Boy Scouts agreed. on
Oh, okay.
something. I wasn't suggesting the churches would be agreeing.
We'll stick the Presbyterians on you yet.
Let's see, that's not it. I'll keep looking.
Okay. Are there other questions about the charter that people want to bring up tonight?
I do have a question that John may have more information on. I haven't raised it so far this year. The actual charters, this current year, busy last year, they were available for printing out by the Key 3. I assume that process is going to continue.
I think so.
Okay, no reason not to, but
Yeah, no, I haven't heard, I don't remember specifically one way or the other on that, but I don't see why they would change from that. I mean, part of that was to try and get that, make it streamline that. If that worked, then I would hope they'd leave it alone.
just like the membership cards
Right.
are available online to the Key 3, so they can print them out and distribute them to. But, yep, it's always nice to have the paperwork. Kids love having those little cards in their hands, so. Adults don't seem to want another card, but
Right.
that's fine. Okay. So
Okay.
now the recharter. I have not seen the fees. Did they go up by another $6 or $8 as they had for the last several years?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay. I'm
I-
assuming it went up because that was the
That was the-
process of the intent.
If you go to the Spirit Adventure Council website to the recharter page, there is line after line of what the fees are.
Okay.
So it's out there available. I didn't want to get depressed by putting them on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, right. I've been avoiding actually finding out.
I
those
don't think the
myself.
fees increased more than $2 or $3 this year. I
That's
think it
nice.
did go up, but it was only a, an incremental amount.
Yeah, I think it had been like $6 a year the past 3 years, ever since the bankruptcy process started.
Right.
So,
And I think the charter fee for the unit has gone up too.
that jumped to, I believe, $75 from 50 last year. Yeah. But that includes some insurance, so not surprising.
Okay.
Still has to come out of the budget of the units, so. It's money well spent, though.
Hmm.
Does anybody else have any questions? I can only see 5 of you at a time on my screen.
I just have a quick question. Is there a good contact if I get stuck in this process
Sure.
with questions?
Yeah, you can email me or call.
Okay.
My email is my name with my middle initial. So it's John C. Boll, that's B as in boy, OLL, @gmail.com. Phone number?
Okay.
617-519-1946.
Great. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. I hope I don't have to hear from you, but I'll be reachable. Except I do not have that cell phone in my pocket right now.
All right, I think that the next thing in submitting your charter is to fill out the form for something called the Journey to Excellence. And this is obviously a way in which a unit can kind of do a self-evaluation of their own program and get a feel for how they're doing in delivering the program to the youth who are involved. The major thing I think about this is it's something that you can't do on November 29th. Even though I would love to do things like that because I have always been somebody who does things at the deadline. But anyway, your unit should be working on this for 2023, starting in January, setting goals, and then using those goals the way to then fill out this form in November of 2023. So hopefully by now you have the information available that will allow you to complete this form. And what I looked at when I looked at it, I'd never realized this is the way the points are broken down. And to me, it's very encouraging to see that the heaviest pointage is in the program and how well your program is running, how you evaluate your program. You do, unfortunately, to get these various award levels, have to distribute the points into different areas. You can't get your 900 points there and then pick up 100 to get gold from somewhere else. You have to distribute them across areas. But I think that's important. And if you think about it, a lot of this is just good planning to run an organization. You have a plan, you have a budget, you have some program to take care of your membership, to keep it growing or to keep it stable and growing. And then you deliver to the youth what we're here for. That is, what is our program? And part of the way to do that is by having quality leadership. And so just to kind of go through, we can talk about the different sections, but to look at the program area. And this is one to John Ball and the other commissioners. There's a question for me. Part of the way you quantify advancement is by having your scouts advance during the year. What happens if you have Eagle Scouts who stay in the troop? They've hit the
They
ceiling.
don't count.
Yeah, they're
They
still
don't-
17, haven't turned 18. They've
Yeah, I
gone-
mean,
they're
I-
working on palms maybe, but
realize this is a rare beast. This is a rare beast. Somebody who's an Eagle Scout for 17.99 years old. But
If you've got an Eagle Scout in your unit who's still coming to troop meetings and actively participating in their patrol, you're not going to have a problem getting enough points. So yeah,
change the denominator, that person doesn't count anymore, or does he?
no, they do count.
still count.
Yeah,
They do count. So they count as though they advanced, even though they've been an Eagle Scout for over a year.
yeah. But they help raise the tide, so all the boats float a little higher. So you should get your points someplace else.
Yeah, that's why there's that 40% buffer on the gold one, where you could still get 200 points. Those are supposed to be for Eagle Scouts.
Okay, I'm glad. I'm glad.
It has nothing to do with JTE, but my advertisement with my green shirt on is, if you got those Eagles, start a venture group.
Well,
That is a good point. That is a very good point. Yeah. How many venture groups are there in our district?
3.
3?
3.
Do they affiliate well with the troop, their home troop, or?
Pretty much. I believe it's 56, 304, and 250.
Yep.
So that's one way. Then so they would count on a different color, their venture group, correct? Those
They-
folks.
Venture crews have their own JTE score cards.
Okay. Okay. Oh, Ken, you may know the answer to this. When I looked at the score sheets, there isn't one for 2023 for venture crews.
2023 hasn't come out yet.
Okay, so okay.
took long enough to get the 2022s out. So,
JTEs always
lag.
They are always the current year. You won't see a 2023 JTE until probably mid to late January.
I see. So then that it really the critical thing is to use that for your planning purposes, and also I assume the troop and pack ones may change at that point.
They really haven't changed a whole lot in the 8 or 9 years I've been tracking JTEs.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they might
Actually-
change like every 4th or 5th year.
Yeah, actually, things are very different for Cub Scouts this year. The PAC JT has changed in almost every point. So we were totally blindsided because we were doing everything according to how last year's JTE is. And all of a sudden, I was filling out the one for this year and saw that almost every point is different, and we've been aiming for the old goals, not the current goals.
Mhm.
So as far as advanced planning, the BSA kind of needs to get his act together if they want us to plan, and if they're changing the JTE significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, that they came out they didn't come out in January of this year. It took quite a while for them to show up. But the history is that they tweak them a little bit each year. They may add a requirement like, the assistant cub master is required to have youth protection or position specific training as well as the other people. But that's not real crucial. But this year, yeah, it was a shock.
The major changes for the JTE this year was basically the removal of a lot of the COVID restrictions off the JTEs.
Right, although of the other 10 remaining ones, 9 of them changed, at least in some way or other.
Yeah, the percentage figures tweak up about 5% maybe a year, but usually not very much. But yeah, all those COVID things were, giving you more leeway, and now suddenly we're back to where we were before 2020. So it's a little harsh. Appears harsh, but yeah. And of course, COVID's not over yet. So.
Right.
But a lot of units are meeting in person, close range, indoors. So, as you say, got to do your best. But the score sheets are, as Ron says, it's the emphasis. The big emphasis appears to be by the numbers, the program, and that's what we're here for. And the other requirements, sometimes it's hard to figure out the retention figures, the percentages. There is an explanation on the back of the form. Sometimes people only print out the front side. The back side gives some explanations for some of those nitty gritty ones. If that doesn't help, then people can call me. Oh, I wanted to remind people, we said this before we started the recording, but we are recording this meeting. So anybody who sees it after this, and if they find some way of opening it and watching, they should be aware that these things do happen. And we are on our honor, doing our best to keep our language straight and whatever else comes in with that. So.
John, another commissioner question. Has there been any confusion? A lot of the requirements, the steps are pretty straightforward. Like you do 3 service projects for bronze, and then 4, and then 5. So straightforward. But then others seem to be, like a cascade. Do this, complete bronze, and then do this, and then do this. Does that ever cause confusion in how people score these things?
I don't remember too much confusion on it. Some units say, they've got it all. They deserve gold. And then going through the little pieces, they may not have read it actually, but it really hasn't been very bad. It's pretty clear what the requirements are. The criteria are spelled out, but
well, for example,
how it's interpreted at the unit level, so that's where we run into a few problems.
For example, patrol method. Okay, if your PLC meets every month, you've got your 10 meetings, so you've completed part of the gold. Do you see what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you get the part. Yes, but you're only going to earn the silver because you're missing something else.
Because you didn't do the advanced training. One of the scouts didn't do the advanced leadership training, right?
Yeah, that's a sore spot with some of them because they figure they should get the gold. They're doing those advanced topics, but not getting the credit for it instantaneously.
Right, or having some gap in the middle that basically look backwards.
Kicks them back to bronze. Yeah, they get upset about that. But then you need a well-rounded program. So the more they do is better. It should be. It'll get recognized eventually. Maybe not this year, but the more they are doing, the better is for their kids, and then they can take credit for that with their but their families, the parents, as well, maybe the charter organization will pay attention to it too, but they do get those streamers to put on their unit flag if they, depending on which level they achieve here.
Right.
But more-
And to me, the true value is if you take this seriously as you go through it, you have performed a very detailed self-evaluation of your unit.
Right.
And ribbon or not, that is valuable for the Scouts outcome through the program. Yeah.
And basically, the other thing is that once people on the other end of the spectrum, if they don't even achieve bronze, that is kind of the cliff. If you're not even making bronze, you're probably not delivering a very good program. That bronze really is the minimum for delivering a decent scouting program. Silver and gold is gravy or frosting on the cake. And for those units who do even more than what's listed for gold, there is no recognition for that officially with these charts, but they can certainly toot their own horn in front of their people. And if we can convince national to, well, I don't think people would be happy about that if there were 4 levels. So bronze, silver, and gold are pretty well established.
Yeah.
No palms involved here.
But, it'd be interesting. Just an analytical question is that is there a correlation between JTE score and troop size? Because I would almost bet you, John, that 4th level would be that high correlation. You get a big healthy unit if you accomplish all that.
Yeah. Yeah, the smaller units have a tougher time.
Right.
I don't think a unit needs to be large in order to earn gold. If you have a good troop with, say, 12 to 16 scouts, and you have and they like 14 of them always attend the meetings, and more than half always attend camping trips, they could easily get gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's true. That is true. Yes.
I think it's true to an extent. The smaller the troop, the more adults that are potentially engaged as leaders, and to go on 9 or 10 campouts is hard to take out of your own family life as a unit leader, right? You just have less adult support to draw from, I think, in a smaller troop. And it depends on how active they are. We're very, very, very lucky. We're a big troop.
Right.
In 304, and there's always adults. They're willing to register, they're willing to learn, they're willing to lead. The 2 adults, I think, does put that burden on, right? So if you're a smaller unit, you just simply have less to draw from to get that on the camping side. And the same with service activities also. That's also we can work away from the rest of your family, so to speak, unless everybody's in the scouting activity.
Henrik, that's a very good, very important point. The role of having an active, trained adult core to be able to pull this off. Unless you have people who really are able to spend a weekend, a month away from their family or whatever, can be hard. Can be very hard on relationships.
Well,
really,
yeah, you got to see the rest of your family. You got to see your grandparents. So, but anyway, so we're lucky. But I can see how if you have less to draw from, and I think there's something I think in 304 in terms of continually, constantly recruit parents, trying to get first-year parents to do a merit badge. Ask their child, what would you like to do, and then do it with a child and drag in a few other children. Like get registered. That's such a good start. Or come on a camp out, be a trip planner. Start there. That, to me, and it's not in this list, I think, here, but it's almost like an encouragement. Like you're recruiting scouts, but you're actually also as you get a scout in the troop, you need to work on converting those that enjoy the activity as tag-alongs to convert them over to, oh, I can be the outdoor activities coordinator, or I can be,
Mhm.
I'll help out with a fundraiser, or maybe I can run one of the service projects and just tee it up such that the scouts then can
Yeah.
have that activity.
I also think, if I remember reading it correctly, because unfortunately it's in tiny type, the one of the volunteer leaderships is recruiting a new leader into your unit is one of the criteria on one of the levels. So yeah, I guess they're thinking about that too, bringing in more people, more adults support. Yeah.
Yeah, Henrik, your point is very good. Also, to Ron, you mentioned about the numerical measurements here. For a smaller unit, it is tough, like for retention or recruitment is the plus side, but the retention, if you lose 2 kids, and you've only got 15, you lose 2 there, that's a huge percentage. So it really skews it on the bronze, silver, and gold.
Yeah, you might lose a minivan that can haul the gear, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
being silly, but it is true. Sometimes that's the constraints, right?
Yeah.
The carpool.
Yeah. There are a couple of guidebooks that are available. I've got the link on this, which hopefully will help people provide additional detail about the whole process, about how this works and whatnot. I do apologize because I have been a Scouts BSA level leader for 20 plus years, and several of those at the beginning were in Cub Scouting, but Cub Scouting has morphed into a program I don't understand anymore, so I can't really help on that one. I think John, though, John is certainly much more familiar with the Cub Scout level programs than I am.
Yeah, it has, it's been a challenge, especially adding all those lower levels, Tiger and now Lion being added in. And of course, changing the names to second year Weeblo, now everybody's calling it Arrow of Light or just AOL.
Yeah.
I find that a bit disconcerting, but gotta put the emphasis where it needs to be for the kids, not just for paperwork or whatever else is behind this. So. But these guidebooks should be helpful if people want to go that far. But
yeah, they certainly they emphasize the notion of getting started early, coming up with a plan at the beginning of the year for what you're going to want to report at the end of the year. So in that sense, it's a memory jog, which will hopefully be helpful for people.
Yeah, and as commissioners, the National came up with this system of going through reviews with the unit leaders, and we were supposed to be encouraging them, of course, to do this stuff. But quarterly reviews, hard for us to do with the units. It's lucky if we get out twice a year to meet all the units. But as you mentioned, Ron, when you first got on this topic, that Journey to Excellence is supposed to be a self-evaluation process. It was when it first came out, it was many steps, 3 different forms, one filled out by the commissioner, one filled out by the unit leaders. Then you'd have a sit-down session and come up with I don't want to call it compromise, but a combination of the 2 for the final results on what is submitted as the JTE form, a scorecard. It was like 38 pages if you tried printing it out. They had a lot of space in the pages for each issue, but I told my commissioners, no way, I'm gonna have you dragging 37, 38 pages around and making duplicate copies. Just keep talking with the folks, keep in touch. And they have, unit leaders have access to these Journey to Excellence forms already. Once they come out for the year. So it's important that the committees step up there. So to help out, support the leaders in that way. that layer of supervision is available. Sort of like what, well, we ended up with the bankruptcy and the all the youth protection violations, so. But that's a different ball of wax.
Okay.
Did you want to go through something else? I think there was something else,
Well,
other handout.
the last slide has to do with advancement.
Okay,
Ooh,
I got a call from John Tumblin. He had a work issue that appeared about 15 minutes before this meeting started. But as Steve pointed out, we are working on developing a Trail to Eagle seminar, both in person and via Zoom, which will hopefully be available several times during the upcoming year. We also have gotten the process of reviewing Eagle project proposals into an organized system where it's reviewed by committee, and typically the scout will be getting feedback in less than a week about whether his project proposal needs modification and is acceptable. So it's kind of a quick turnaround between when the scout sends it in and when she gets the decision that they go ahead for the Eagle project. Most of the discussion that goes back and forth typically revolves around safety issues. So I'd encourage the unit leaders and the Eagle coordinators in your units to have the scout think seriously about safety issues that may arise during their project. We've had people propose doing things with basically, power diggers and things like that, which are certainly not tools that Scouts BSA kids should have their hands on, or welding equipment, or removing lead paint and things like that. So those safety issues are the things that cause it, the back and forth the discussion between the advancement committee and the Scout. Last but not least, we have Eagle boards going on a fairly regular basis. Scouts are getting through those boards, and I have to report so far it's 100% pass rate. They are doing super. Impressive young people, make us all feel good at the end of the night. So I think that's about it. A summary of what the advancement situation is.
I have to throw something in relation to that. I know 3 or 4 had quite a big blob that's now 12th grade kids, and you guys have, you Ron, you Steve, John Tumblin have really, and maybe others too, you've been there to do those border reviews, like you back to back to back. So thank you for that. And then some of them have been pressed for time, of course, right? And you guys have come through every single time. So thank you.
Yeah. I have to say this, that is one of the most rewarding things you get to do, to have that discussion with the Scout. The end point, the experience that they've had, the things they liked, and the challenges they faced. And that really, they are Eagles. There's no question about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly has been our pleasure. It's very gratifying to see these young kids, youth, taking this so seriously and doing it so well, with great spirit. It bodes well for our future, and provides us with a sense of legacy. So
Yeah.
I keep asking them, are they willing to take on adult positions when they reach that higher age? That I'm not going to let go too fast, but consider doing my job in 50 years from now. Okay. So it's
Well,
fun.
that's a big ask. Those are big shoes, John.
It's most enjoyable. So
Yeah.
it can't pay to get such satisfaction or sense of being well done. So.
Well, good news is you're not compensated. So.
Oh, don't get taxed on it then. That's fine by me. Oh, I knew there was something else.
Yes, John, go ahead.
No, I see your display.
Yeah, kind of just to remind people that we're going to meet again the second Thursday in December. I am too disorganized to tell you what the date is. And the basic Scouts BSA breakout will deal with first aid. I'm trying to come up with a way we can have an online first aid game to see what our first aid skills as a group are. I hope we can have a little fun doing that.
I believe it's going to be Roundtable will be December 8th, as early as can possibly be. Being the
Okay.
second Thursday of the month.
Thank you.
I measure everything from my birthday. So.
Okay, so any other questions? Any other
Oh.
time you want to talk about in our last 13 minutes?
I'm curious how people are doing with the reboot after COVID. Like we went, 3 or 4 went virtual. We have 2 years of Scouts that crossed over into a virtual world one way or the other, partial, right? We still did some things outdoors, of course. And it shows a little bit right now. We're trying to get back into the habit again of, and it's really some of the mechanics of, for example, when we go on a camp out, Art, meeting, packing up the patrol boxes, having the patrol boxes in good standing. We now have 7th, maybe not 8th grade, but 7th graders that are just learning that whole, they started last year, but they're learning the in-person, like, you need to make sure, do you know your buddy has your tent? Because you don't have the tent. Who's gonna put that patrol box in which parent's car and those kind of things, or carpooling. So there's generation of parents and there's a generation of Scouts that crossed over into a very modified world. And I feel we're almost back. I don't know what you feel, Art, if we're 100% rebooted to get back to those 100% in-person habits. We meet, there's no virtual activities that we do. It's just the rhythm, the mechanics that I feel are not 100% back yet. It's working though. I mean, it's not an issue, but I'm just curious what other people's experience are.
Yeah, it's much the same. We had meetings. We just met outside during COVID. We just bodged up one of the parents actually bodged up some lights to put at one of the local parks, and we met there. But you're right, when it comes down to the rhythm of actually going on a camping trip and things like that, we're really we're getting started with that again. I think it's knocking the rust off. And we did have a series of older Scouts who aged out over the last year, and like that knowledge base, you're right, we've got 6th and 7th, we have 7th and 8th graders that really haven't been on a lot of camping trips, and suddenly they're in a position of being a patrol leader or something like that, and it's been exciting, I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah. Yes, it is adventurous.
Yes, certainly we have gotten spoiled here having our roundtables by Zoom. No transportation issues. It is literally 5 seconds from putting my uniform shirt on to being in front of the screen. So when we move back to in-person roundtables, I'm hoping to see a lot more faces, bodies, but this has been so time efficient. It's just going to be hard to give it up. We may have to decide whether we do a hybrid or what.
Yeah.
Do 2 roundtables a month, one in person and one by Zoom. I don't know.
One potentially interesting thing is Steve is now going to set up a way so that this recording will be available to other leaders who may have other commitments on the 2nd Thursday of the month. And it'd be interesting to track that to see if in fact this material does get further distributed to that population. We already know Joe Curran has already worked out that there are troops meeting tonight and PACs meeting tonight. That sort of, obviously any leader could come, but typically if a unit's having a meeting, they will not come on that night to a roundtable.
Yeah.
But Joe's going to have statistics on that for us.
Got it. Working your ticket basically for your doctorate of scouting science, right? Yeah. Okay.
So Joe, is it Joe Curran, comma DSS Doctor of Scouting Science.
It's Commissioner of Science, and I'm only a master right now, so I can change that to MCS.
MCS, okay.
Yes, not too many people go on for the doctorate. There's quite a few of us with masters, and still have a little, basically it's like a knot. We got a patch, a large patch, and then there was a small segment for the bachelor's and another small one. All three would fit across the bottom. But it's a big gap between the hurdle there to continue on for the doctorate. And it's not expected to be done in one session or 1 year. So, but it's
Yeah,
worth it.
minimum 5 years of work for
Yeah.
a doctorate.
Something to shoot for.
Yep.
It's a great program. Commissioner Science. Okay. Well, if people don't have any more questions, I'm happy to let you go early.
Yeah. I
Get a
think
little more of your evening. Ron,
was
do
a
you
good-
have anything else?
No, I don't. I think we had a good session. I think we had some nice participation, a decent number of people came in, and I see, looking at the Zoom screen, that certainly for the first aid section, I'm gonna try somehow to have a Cub Scout incorporation in it. I we really want to make this as inclusive as possible for all levels of scouting. So we'll get some way to include the Cub Scout requirements into that first aid game. Okay. So I'm fine. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all for
Thank
joining
you.
us, spending your evening with
Whatever.
us.
Email.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Take care. Thank you.
Good night.
Oh, Ron, hang in there.
Okay.